Hello, I'm going to be discussing the 19th century abolitionists, what tactics they used, and what disagreements arose surrounding the movement. What is an abolitionist? An abolitionist, as the name implies, is a person who sought to abolish slavery during the 19th century. These individuals sought the immediate and full emancipation of all enslaved people. Some of the tactics that they used moral persuasion through different groups or societies or in print in newspapers or books. They used political action, speeches, and through court cases. And they also used direct action. This was more of the forceful, aggressive action that sometimes made some disagreements between the abolitionists. The disagreements. The disagreements within the movement often centered around the methods, like I stated before, that were used and the extent of immediate action. While some advocated for that immediate action and nonviolent, others believed in let's get this done and used more of a violent approach. This is one of the first societies that was put together to really get the movement going. It had a lot of disagreements in it, though. The American Colonization Society, they believed that the freed slaves needed to return to Africa. So, over the next few decades, the society secured land in West Africa and they would ship them to that colony, which later in 1847 was Liberia, is now the nation of Liberia. Some Black Americans supported this, but many criticized. They argued that America was their home. They put their sweat and blood into the land. Their families were there, and they built the country. So, therefore, they had just as much right to be here as any of the citizens. The society evolved and began to support the immediate emancipation of slaves while still promoting that colony in Africa, which did cause this society to lose support among Southern slave owners who were committed to preserving slavery. So the Missouri Compromise was another thing that happened that really provoked the anti-slave movement. This was in 1820, and it allowed Missouri to become a slave state. So the abolitionist movement began as more organized, radical, and immediate effort to end slavery after this. Historians believe that the ideas during this movement, which was also known as the Second Great Awakening, inspired abolitionists to rise up against slavery more vocally, in every way. This is also one of the court cases that really gave momentum to the anti-slavery movement. The Dred Scott case, also known as Dred Scott versus Sanford, was a decade-long fight for freedom by a Black enslaved man named Dred Scott. The case persisted through several courts and ultimately reached the Supreme Court. But they did rule that even living in a free state and territory did not entitle Scott to be a free man. He was still property of the person that owned him. So this gave huge momentum to the anti-slavery movement and served kind of as a stepping stone to the Civil War. So as I talked about before, one of the tactics was print. William Lloyd Garrison started The Liberator, which was anti-slave paper, and it helped get news out there about what was going on, what needed to happen. And then he also helped form the New England Anti-Slavery Society. Civil War broke out. He continued to blast that Constitution as a pro-slavery document. And then when the Civil War ended, he finally got to see the end of slavery. Another print tactic. Harriet Beecher Stowe was a world-renowned American writer. She was a very strict abolitionist and one of the most influential women in the 19th century. She wrote dozens of books and articles and essays, but her best known was Uncle Tom's Cabin, which brought a big light on the enslaved people and really told that actual day-to-day story about their lives. And Harriet Tubman. She was more of the forceful, like I said, let's take action and get this done. She was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. She also was a Union spy, and she is one of the most recognized icons in American history. And her legacy has inspired countless people from every race and background to really stand up for what they believe in. So, touching on Underground Railroad, this was one of the biggest ways that she was getting these slaves away from their owners. But there was strategies that you had to use. Getting help. Everyone had to help each other out in ways of, even if it was just by word of mouth, make sure they're telling each other who's safe to talk to, who they could trust. Also, timing with the Underground Railroad was crucial. They liked to travel more in the winter. It was longer hours of darkness. Not as many people were out. Also, they liked to travel on Saturdays because they had a couple days before anyone might realize they were gone. Disguises and hiding. They would dress like elderly women or men. They would also sometimes just hide in plain sight and just try to blend in. The codes and secret pathways. This is what everybody's mind goes to when they say Underground Railroad, even though it was not all underground. But they did have secret ways that they would travel. The codes, sometimes they would refer to a group of slaves as a bushel of wood, or sing some songs walking down the street, letting everyone know that they're safe and they're going to be trying to leave. Buying freedom was also a tactic that they could use if the abolitionists would raise money and actually just buy the freedom for the slave. And also fighting, which kind of people have different views on. That was more of the forceful tactic. So, the Civil War and its aftermath. Finally, President Lincoln opposed slavery, but he did it in more of a cautious way. And he, in the South, when the South reached its peak, the Civil War broke out in 1861. Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, calling for all the freeing of enslaved people in areas of the rebellion. Then finally, in 1865, he put through the 13th Amendment, which officially abolished all forms of slavery in the United States. And that is all. Thank you for watching.